If you look at the way in which immigrants are talked about, both on the pro-immigrant side, the immigrant rights side, as well as on the restrictionist side, there are some themes. And so what I'm going to do is look at the two big frames and how each side approaches them. So the first identity that immigrants have in our country is as workers. So on the right-wing side, the restrictionist side, immigrant workers are characterized as job stealers. That's the frame that the restrictionists put on immigrants who work. And the progressive or pro-immigrant response to that for many years was to talk about the innocent worker, the innocent, hard-working immigrant, you know, the one who is willing to do jobs that Americans aren't willing to do. I know you're recognizing these messages from stuff you've read and stuff possibly that you've written, and certainly stuff you've heard said. So on the worker front, you know, on the right-wing side, there's the job stealer who's not deserving the job, and on our side, there's the hardworking, innocent worker. The second identity that immigrants have is as criminals. So on the restrictionist side, they're characterized as either potential terrorists or as lawbreakers. And on the opposition side, you often hear this line, what part of illegal don't you understand, right? That's they've broken the law, there's nothing else to say about it, you know, they need to be punished in as many different ways as we can find to punish them. And our response to that framing has been largely to talk about how these hardworking immigrants, so bringing in the worker frame, are not the real criminals that we need to be worried about. And you can see that that's a problematic frame in many, many ways. You know, when you say something like the real criminals in this country, whose image you're going to bring up is that of black people, just to be totally straightforward about it. And you know, if you contrast a kind of hardworking person to the implication being the not hardworking person, whose image is going to come up as the not hardworking person? So these framing decisions that we make, we're not making them in a vacuum. We're making them on top of hundreds of years of stereotypes and images and pictures and stories and myths that have established characters in our country. You know, the hardworking character, the criminal character, the lazy character, and so on. I don't have to continue. So one of the things that's resulted from, or that has been enabled by this framing on both sides, is the expanded criminalization of not just immigrants, but also of US-born people of color, Black and Latino people in particular. The way it comes through in the immigrant communities that I have worked with is, for example, the list of deportable crimes, the number of crimes for which you can serve your time in the United States but then be deported for having been convicted of. That list of deportable crimes has grown exponentially over the last 15 to 20 years. 1996 was a very big year in terms of making policy that criminalized immigrants. One of the things that happens in this expanded criminalization, for example, is that crimes that are not actually felonies in the domestic criminal justice code are considered felonies in the immigration criminal code. So that's just one example of the way in which you know, we will take, as a matter of policy, you know, low-level crimes, non-violent crimes. Will create crimes out of things that didn't used to be crimes, like identity fraud, which is used to justify a lot of the raids that are happening now. And we will apply those to immigrants in order to create essentially a collateral punishment system, a system in which you can be punished once and then punished again and again and again. Punished once by doing prison time for whatever crime you're convicted of, and then punished, really put into exile for the rest of your life through a criminal deportation that follows. That trend is the same trend that affects Black communities in particular, as well as US-born Latino communities, when, for example, people with low-level drug crimes go to prison, come out of prison, have this record, this criminal record that then prevents them from being able to live in public housing or from being able to get certain kinds of licenses, like barber's licenses and hairdressing licenses. So, you know, that idea that you can't just punish people one time, you have to punish them for their entire lives over and over and over again, and that in this setting, if you've committed a crime and you've been convicted, you can never come out from that, you can never have a second chance. That idea has affected US-born communities of color and immigrants alike, particularly brown-skinned immigrants. So over the long haul, what I'm hoping some of our current plans will do is really begin to expose the downsides of criminalizing immigrants and to connect that downside to the downside of criminalizing Black and Latino communities, US-born communities. Our approach has been to produce stories and journalism and blogging that begins to create a conflict between one set of deeply held American values, the value of fairness and due process, for example, or the value of keeping families together, create a conflict between those values and another set of deeply held and right now dominant American values, like the value of national sovereignty, national security, really patriotism, and the value of law and order, easily applied in a racist way without anybody asking any questions. So just a quick example, the next product that people can see in our magazine and on our websites in September will be a set of stories and video about a family that is caught up, that was split up by criminal deportation, a Jamaican family. There's fairly little coverage really of immigrants who are not Latino immigrants, and we're trying to round out that picture as much as we can. A Jamaican family that has a US-born child in New York and wife in New York, and where the father got deported on criminal deportation, in the criminal deportation system. So trying to create some conflict between the values is what we think we can do right now while building political and journalistic alliances between all the communities that have something at stake in this. Thanks.